Very good morning to you. Welcome to the morning brief right here on Channels Television. I'm Jeffrey Uzongo.
It's the Tuesday edition, January the 27th. Welcome to your perfect morning starter right here on Channels Television. Of course, it promises to be another power-packed package. I am Bukola Koka. Hi, Jeffrey.
Good morning, Bukola. So what are you tracking? There's a lot going on. Sometimes you want to catch, which one do I really face today? And there's everything everywhere. So, Bukola, which of them is of interest to
Well,
you?
there seems to be a lot of politicking in the air, whether you're looking at governance or you're looking at, the core politics itself. And I noted two contrasts yesterday. Of course, we had reported it earlier that the son of former vice president and, of course, traditional presidential, contestant Alhaji Atiku Abubakar officially registered yesterday in his ward in Adamawa State. But on the contrary, and we provided all of the implications of that for you. I don't want to rehash it. You may have to go back and, watch that particular episode again. But on the contrary, Jeffrey, I noted that the son of Alhaji Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso of the NNPP national leader, well, the position that some others in the party contest, resigned his appointment, and he said it was a very sad event for him that he had to resign. And so philosophically, he couldn't continue with the government of Alhaji Abba Kabir Yusuf, the governor of Kano State, who has since moved officially. He's now a member of the All Progressives Congress. So he resigned his appointment as commissioner in the cabinet of Alhaji Abba Kabir Yusuf. And so, that is a very compelling one. He is preferring to go with his father to the NNPP and whatever political destination that he may be headed for in the near future. Not quoting him copiously, but of course, you can read between the lines and see what exactly is playing out there. Of course, there were other resignations or others who chose to stay behind in the NNPP, and we're going to be looking at that much later on. Yes, indeed, of course, on Channels Television. But, that's significant. And, Jeffrey, of course, there's also something happening in the federal capital. The Abuja workers of the Federal Capital Development Authority are, on strike. And we saw that yesterday play out in the FCT, where they carried placards, yes, indeed, and they, demanded the exit of the minister of the FCT, and, they chanted slogans like, Abuja no be rivers. And this has been long coming. The strike didn't start today. And one would have thought that, this would have been sorted, because it's embarrassing for an administration that has been touted, to be an achieving one with a transformation of the FCT. And that's why we always say that a concentration on infrastructure development is not a mark of excellence for any administration, for any subnational government. Infrastructure development must be balanced by personnel development as well. And that is what we often do not see, as a hallmark of governance in any government. And so when you're developing the amenities that the people are using, what about human capital development? What about human resource development? And, there's a long list of their demands, Jeffrey. I don't know how you're weighing in on this one. Instead, what we're seeing is an attempt to stop the strike at the courts.
Interesting data. As far as labor union, organized labor, and people demanding for their rights is concerned, it is their constitutional right to demand. Now, they say they have some demand. They've listed those demands. They've submitted it to the FCTA. But it looks like maybe the administration doesn't seem to agree with some of the things that is being demanded. Whatever it is, now they have headed to court. But as you said, I think that sometimes when these workers are demanding for what they demand for, it's as simple as it should be. If it's a wage increase, if it's certain allowances to be paid, I don't think it's too much. The monies that is being stolen, I'll continue to say things about stolen money in terms of corruption, because if Nigeria can fix corruption, just corruption, we will not be borrowing the much we borrow. The problem with our resources is that if there are leakages, people pilfer, people steal, people embezzle this money. And then EFCC struggles time and again to be able to recover all of these monies. So when you hear the humongous amount being reeled out by the EFCC sometimes when they call out these people or literally take them to court, you're wondering, how exactly did somebody amass this kind of wealth? And these people are basically not asking for, I don't think it's anything extra from what is their due. Now, if there is something you cannot do, I think there's a way to come to the table and negotiate and say, okay, guys, due to you're demanding for 100, but if you look at the entirety of the coffers of government, we just have 80, and this 80, we have to do this, we have to do that. There's something called collective bargaining. So you look at all the elements and look, for now, out of the 100 you're asking for, because of 80 only in our accounts, we can do just 30. Give us 3 months, give us 2 years, give us something to work out, because it's totally embarrassing that the FCT, which is celebrated under Nyesom Wike for the infrastructural development is pushing across the FCT, giving the city some extra facelift. It's not as if Abuja wasn't fine, but, you know, but he's done his bit. You can't discountenance his contribution to the development of Abuja. But these basics, Bukola, I'm sure that whenever we interview these guys, that's why I always ask the question, Bukola, whenever we interview these guys, I always try to ask how much is involved. It will shock you. We haven't spoken to them on the show. But the day we'll have them on the show, we'll find out exactly how much is in control. Because everything has to do sometimes with either working condition or it has to do with, you know, remuneration or some amount of money. So at the end of the day, I just hope that this will be sorted out as quickly and as soon as possible. Remember when we were talking with ASU, and we asked a question as at one of the allowances, I've forgotten what the item is, and the professor said it was just about 9 billion naira. 9 billion, what is that to federal government? It's literally nothing. So on Nyesom Wike, the honorable minister, while you're busy politicking and fighting all your battles in River State and your political battle in Nigeria, you have one responsibility as well. Take care of your workers. Do the best you can to negotiate with them. Sometimes it's not fire for fire that resolves problem. You know his personal disposition. He's always very intense and sometimes quite aggressive in his approach to things. He wants to get things done forceful. No, it doesn't work like that because he believes that you cannot intimidate him, you cannot do all of that. This is democracy. Everybody has a right to do what they have to do. Yes, we've criticized him for some of his outlier behavior in public, but you cannot discountenance his contribution to the development of the FCT. But I think this can be resolved without all that drama.
Absolutely.
Yes.
If workers are demanding their rights, they're demanding promotion, arrears, bonuses, it is well within their rights. They do not resume to work at the Federal Capital Authority, you know, free of charge. They're not being done a favor by the federal government. They're offering their services.
And their time.
And their time. And if their services and their time are genuine, based upon qualification, they deserve, you know, the right to be paid their due. For crying out loud, just last year, we talked about how much the Federal Capital Authority put into the renovation of the conference center.
Which we don't have details of till today.
Absolutely.
I did send a message to his aide. I said, look, this
Did you get a reply?
I did not. I didn't even get a hi.
Would have heard, you know, during our editorials.
I sent a message. I said, 39 billion is what you're spending to renovate International Conference Center.
Yes.
Are there supporting document we can look at? But I didn't get a reply.
And we could well remind the FCT minister that he just, you know, concluded a 12 all local government in River State. 17 local governments in River State. And that could not have been done without some form of investment. So
no,
governance...
that would have gone into billions of naira, I can assure you.
So
it's not cheap.
So, you know, governance should also be given some form of priority. And you always ask, how much would it cost to sort out workers who are protesting? Is it anything close to what has been invested on, you know, the 12, the local governments in River State? So, well, Mr. Nyesom Wike reserves the right to embark on politics, but he should also take care of his primary responsibility, which is the welfare of workers, the welfare of administration in the Federal Capital Territory. He is the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory. And so we ask for accountability in the demands that these workers are seeking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We also know that besides the issue of workers, there are issues around the military now submitting a report over the coup incident, or alleged coup as they call it. We understand that the report has now been formally submitted to the president over that attempted coup on President Bola Tinubu. So we don't know the details. We only know that certain military officers, I think the highest rank is the rank of a brigadier general, and they've been detained for as long as that incident has occurred. They are being investigated, being grilled, and now the report is being submitted to the president. Now, for the record, if you're found guilty of a coup d'etat, it's a treasonable offense, and you serve the capital punishment. That means the state will reserve the power to take your life. So we'll look at, how this will play out eventually. But in adding to what has played out, I don't think, Bukola, that coups, they are the way to go. I know, you and I know as Nigerians, that we've not been fortunate to have good leadership successively, our dream leadership as a country. Every leader has come and tried and experimented and done their bit. We are blessed with everything, natural, human, material resources, but leadership has failed because most of the time, a lot of the people we have in government are either greedy or coming to steal our commonwealth and all of that, pushing their agenda, their own personal agenda or their party agenda. So we've not been fortunate. If you look at what is even happening in Africa, Africa has not really been fortunate with leadership, and they perpetuate themselves. In fact, there's something we now call, Bukola, is it a democratic coup, where people use the institution of state. Even in Nigeria, people use the institution of state or to perpetrate their evil, to keep themselves in power. They use INEC, they use the court, they use the police, they use the military. But democracy is still the hallmark.
What some call selectocracy.
Yeah. Whatever shade you want to call it. But we are practicing democracy not in its pure form. I've always argued that. We have a shade of democracy that is quite funny and antithetical to what the democratic tenet and ideology is really. Because I see democracy as an ideology, not just a form of government. So I don't think coup is the way to go. I do not think coup is the way to go.
Jeffrey, I think we should also speak to the facts, because perhaps the coup could not have come if we had good governance. That's on the one hand. And on the other hand, we also should call out the military for what may, we may call a lying to the public. Remember that the Defense Headquarters had denied that this coup took place in the first place, and that the 16 officers that were fingered in the military coup reported last year actually failed promotion exams. So again, accountability is at the heart of governance. Core governance. The report has now come through, and these officers, ranging from the rank of captain to other ranks, will be tried. And Jeffrey has talked about the implication of the military trial that will be, carried out on these 16 officers. And there had even been reports from last year about the detention of these officers and that their whereabouts had been unknown. And now the truth is beginning to come out. Shall we be forthright about governance in all its shades and forms, about transparency in institutions? Institutions do not work without the people. They're called institutions for a reason, because they're made up of people. And so institutional development must be prioritized, because not everyone will remain in an institution forever. So what legacy are we leaving behind? And we could also recall, when our officers offline on Burkina Faso breached the rule and they were detained. What we got from the military also was not particularly the truth until the intervention by the Nigerian government saw the return of the officers back into the country. And so we should speak to the issues. We should be forthright about the issues as they come. Jeffrey.
Yes, definitely. We'll speak to all the issues. In fact, no time, but we'll have spoken to what's happening in Osun State. The governor is alleging that the CBN is paying money to the APC-led government through a UBA account with greater sense of it, because he said it, that's why I said it.
Oh, of course, Jeffrey, that is an important conversation.
Yeah, we're going to mainstream that conversation, but
in the coming days.
Not today, because
not today.
I know that the whole idea of local government autonomy hasn't really taken effect across the federation. So what's going on in Osun State? We're going to probe it further. It's a technical issue, legal issue, but the governor is not happy, and the elections are coming. All right, so let's tell you what we're dealing today. Today, we continue our conversation around what we've been talking about, National Voter Intentions Survey carried out by Yaga Africa. Now, we have just said we have not been too fortunate when it comes to national leadership. So this is why this is important. You are responsible for the kind of leaders we have in our country. Now, there's a data to support some argument and query some argument, tackling voter apathy, talking about security, trust in INEC, and all of the issue as far as election management is concerned. Bukola.
Yes, indeed. So we're taking a second look at Yaga Africa's voter intention survey. But from there, we'll head to Anambra State, where Governor Chukwuma Soludo has shut down the Onitsha main market over the traders' refusal, or over the traders' defiance. Is it defiance now? Observance of the sit-at-home order on Monday. He tagged it some form of sabotage, and that in fact those who observe it should be, suspect. His Commissioner for Information joins us today on the program to discuss the government's approach to tackling this issue. Is that the enduring solution to the continuous observance of the sit-at-home order? So we'll be talking about that today.
I'll also talk about some employment issue that has to do with the CBN. We understand the CBN had recruited some persons at the twilight of the Buhari administration, God rest his soul, but they seem not to have resumed work since they were employed. What exactly is going on? That's a conversation. But hey, let's bring you what the dailies are saying. And in just 10 minutes, we've got to take a look at the dailies, and we'll get to our conversation, our guest, to look at election management, especially when it has to do with voter intention survey by Yaga Africa, which is an important conversation. We will be right back in just a moment. Stay with us. Adeni Ifetaya, who is the CEO of Megastar Magazine, joins us right here. Okay, joins us virtually. Mr. Adeni, good morning. If you can help us unmute your device, sir. All right, Mr. Adeni, while we wait for you to unmute your device, we'll start with this. Nigeria. Military confirms failed coup plots against Tinubu. 16 indicted officers to face court-martial, according to DHQ. Mr. Adeni, can you hear us now? Oh, dear. So we're hoping we can catch Mr. Ifetayo to join us and give us his own view as far as this incident is concerned. The last time, we're coming back. We're coming out of military coup 2026. So we can say 27 years ago was when we left that era of attempted coup or coup plots that toppled government time and again, all the way from 66, 67 and all of that till the First Republic, the Second Republic, the Third Republic that was bought, and this is our Fourth Republic. This was initially denied. In fact, the initial statement was to the effect, I don't know, we need to ask the military. Maybe it's a modus operandi. So when something happens within the military hierarchy, what you hear is first outright denial. They just deny, because what we had was some issues around they not passing exams or not doing well in exams. Maybe it's their own way of dousing tension. I don't know, but I don't think that's strategy.
But Jeffrey, a lie is what it is.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to try to just look for a reason to give an excuse. But I think the military, if it's a strategy in communication to first deny before you accept, I don't think it's a great one. Because the day you finally say the truth, nobody will take you serious anymore. And you are a serious institution that is quite formidable. You are very important to national sovereignty. So maybe there's a reason when I have them, whenever we have them on the show, perhaps, or privately, we can ask them why this is happening. But Mr. Ifetayo, can you hear us now? All right, fantastic. We're trying to just wait for... Oh, yeah, okay. We're talking about this headline: military confirms failed coup plot against Tinubu. What's your take?
Well, of course, we've spoken exhaustively to it this morning. Perhaps not enough. It's a conversation that we should mainstream and recall a string of events, you know, from the military where there have been denials before true reports eventually came through. And so we hope that they're watching by proxy or directly this morning, such that adjustments can be made. But there are more reports on the front pages this morning demanding our attention. Let's head over to the New Telegraph, of course, which doubles down on the reports of the planned court-martial for officers alleged to have plotted to overthrow the government. Of course, we see right there on the front page of New Telegraph, federal workers that stormed the National Industrial Court protesting, you know, issues of their welfare yesterday from the Federal Capital Territory. And we also see at the bottom many governance issues that you should be weighing in on this morning, and I'm sure that you have some interesting thoughts on it, Mr. Ifetayo. Opposition reps raised the alarm over non-implementation of the 2025 budget. Say House approved all loan requests by executive to meet today on critical national legislative issues. Now I wonder, because increasingly every day with defections rather coming through, we're having more APC lawmakers. So how many opposition lawmakers, you know, are available, both the upper and the legislative chamber, to provide the much needed scrutiny for the appropriation bill of 2025 and in fact the 2026 appropriation proposal. Yesterday we've seen also 12 out of the 14 lawmakers of the NNPP in Kano State are now officially APC lawmakers. And so where is the scrutiny that we require for critical, you know, issues of national importance like budget, like policy, like legislation? Because what it looks like now is that everything that the ruling party requires now in form of approval, in form of legislative oversight, will have it, as we say, the majority will have its the minority will have their say, the majority will have their way. So it appears as if continuously there is going to be, you know, a smooth sail for anything that comes from the ruling party to the National Assembly. And there'll be very, very little scrutiny that will be put to bear on critical issues. But of course, the National Assembly leadership will say, we are not an assembly that grandstands and, you know, dramatizes issues. We engage constructively, but of course the results will tell more than what we're seeing in the form of engagement on the floor of both chambers.
Which can get the input of Mr. Ifetayo about technical issues. So, but let's look at one paper and then we'll get to our first conversation. Let's look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian newspaper, as we wrap up, residents on the brink as rents spike above yearly income in major cities. Residents on the brink as rents spike above yearly income in major cities. That's a page of 6 read on the Guardian newspaper. You can see that pictorial depiction. Nigeria's housing deficit, estimated at nearly 28 million units, continues to widen. Lagos is notorious for increase in rent. In fact, I remember, if I stand to be corrected, it was, I think, Wale Edun, the Honorable Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy. I think there was a summit in Owerri where it was saying, I think between when the president, I think he was trying to compare, I'm not sure, maybe the end of the administration of Muhammadu Buhari and now, that citizens now spend just barely 50% rather than 100% of their income, their household, on expenses for their household. That's not true. Flat out, that's not true. I'm avoiding calling it a lie because the last time I said lie, Bola almost let me wrong. That is not true. Because I can speak for a fact that, for instance, in Lagos, let's talk about electricity. I used to pay, maybe if I recharge 100,000 naira, that could take me for another 3 months or close to 3 months. But sometimes, if I use everything I have in my house, the way I want to use them, the 100,000 naira takes me for just a month. So how am I not spending more? I can talk about fuel. I am spending about maybe 5 times more than I used to spend before. So what is it talking about here? Food, we know how much we spend for food. It comes up and down depending on what kind of food you eat and what you want to buy. But the basics are the basics. The rents, now, people are not, depending on where you live, the average place to pay rent for 2-bedroom flat, maybe 1.5, 2 million. In Nigeria, you understand, in places like Lagos. So when if I was in that audience, I would have asked him.
That's just for basic.
Yes, I would have, because if you talk about housing,
standards,
housing, food, you know, transportation, those are the basics. So what exactly was the minister talking about? I would have asked him, so from where do you get your data exactly? Even food went up and then started coming down, but it hasn't arrived where it came from. You can argue that, whether it will come or not. So I don't think people should just be throwing numbers and throwing data. That is why when government speaks, their facts look detached from the reality of people, and so they begin to have that back and forth. Why are you not saying what I'm saying? The people are saying, what are you saying that I'm not saying? But I think we should be real. So this is why this is important. This is a page 6 read on the pages of, page 6 on the Guardian newspaper. Take a look at it as far as this is concerned, because sometimes I feel that the communications of the presidency is even conflicting in themselves. The president himself admitted that this policy is going to inflict pain. We are still feeling the pain. And then some people are saying, oh, the pain is over.
Yeah.
Are you guys joking with us here?
And
also?
You know, Jeffrey, perhaps we should also emphasize that accommodation in major cities in the country cost an arm and a leg. If you're talking about Lagos, the federal capital, you know, Port Harcourt, even the Warri, Delta State, major cities in the country, you know, accommodation is not a walk in the park. It's not easy to you know, afford. It's not very affordable. And so in Lagos, there is a legislative intervention that will still be put to test before we can say that indeed the legislative intervention is now working in the favor of Nigerians who are paying very, very, you know, high sums to sustain their accommodation. But of course, there's also a housing scheme. But how, you know, how far-reaching, how much of these similar policies do we have in major cities and across, you know, the country that makes accommodation affordable within the reach of the middle class in Nigeria? And so it's a very important conversation.
Yeah, it's an important conversation. We're not saying the government has not done some things right. They've done some things right. But when it is not right, don't call it right. We're not going to agree on that. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll get to that conversation. So, Yaga Africa, we started the conversation last week about National Voting Intentions Survey, looking at whether Nigerians are really interested in this democracy. The good news is that they are, because 77% say they want to vote in 2027. but 46% of that saying, oh, we're worried about the safety of our lives. And then there are other data to query from their research, the rich one. So today, we'll be speaking with CSO, we'll be speaking with the police, which is a stakeholder, and we'll be speaking with the political party, and they are all joining us from our Abuja studio. But I must say thank you to Mr. Adeni Ifetayo. Sorry we couldn't get you and your input because of the technical issues. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back. And so let's begin with that voter intention survey report produced by Yaga Africa and its partners. We began interrogating that report last week on the program. So we have another panel of a complete outlook, without INEC, which we'll hope will weigh in on the conversation in the coming days on the program. And so joining us this morning, we have the Africa Program Coordinator for Yaga Africa, Mr. Ibrahim Farouk, who joins us from our Abuja studio. We have also Mr. Egbelola Martins, the National Publicity Secretary of the YPP, who's also in our Abuja studio, and not forgetting, of course, Mr. Bayomi Shogunle, the Commissioner of Police on Elections, who also joins us. So let's begin with Mr. Ibrahim Farouk to sort of do a refresher, very quick refresher for us on the high points of that report that we began looking at last week, before we now bring in other representatives of the electoral process that are on the panel. So, Mr. Farouk, over to you now. The high point of the report again.
Thank you so much for having me. The National Voting Intentions Survey was carried out by Yaga Africa together with NOI Polls. And it was a telephone survey that was carried out between the 1st and the 5th of December 2025, that sampled over 1,500 Nigerians, just to find out, are they going to come out and vote in the 2027 general elections? And the data shows us, first and foremost, that there is a high intention by Nigerians. 77% of the respondents said that they are either likely or very highly likely to come out and vote in the 2027 general elections. However, 42% say that they fear that there may be violence, and that would present a barrier for them. But we also saw some regional disparities when it comes to voting intentions. And we see that there are higher voting intentions in some of the northern regions, especially in the northwest and in the northeast. But then voting intentions are also lower in some of the southern regions, especially in the south-south and in the southeast. But there are also some other very interesting data sets that we see that would inform a lot of programming by different stakeholders, including civil society organizations, security agencies, political parties, and the media. Some of these include what are some of the things that can affect voter turnout. And for us in our elections, I think since 2007, voter turnout has steadily been declining. But the data shows us that if there is improved security, if there is an improvement of INEC logistics, and also if the quality of candidates for the general elections improves, we're going to see an increase in voter turnout. From our estimations, there would be close to 100 million Nigerians on the voters register at the conclusion of this continuous voter registration process. And if we can turn these intentions to have 77% of Nigerians from this survey who indicate that they want to come out and vote during the elections, if we can turn this intention into action, and this action is actually turning out to vote in the 2027 general elections, we would see an improvement in terms of legitimacy for our elections. Finally, maybe it's just to also speak about an interesting data set about what are some of the things that can also affect voting choices. We also see security featuring very strongly. We see economic conditions featuring very strongly, and also around the quality of candidates. Again, I think this speaks to different stakeholders in the electoral process, because when we talk about security, I think there's a job for our security agencies to do there. When we talk about economic conditions, also for elected officials who are in these positions to make a change, to ensure that there's a job to be done there, but also the quality of candidates. It's very important for political parties to consider that as well.
All right. Thank you for those high points. Let's now take it to the Commissioner for Police for Elections, Mr. Shogunle. And so we could even compare the outcome of this survey with the outcome of the Anambra governorship elections in 2025, where we saw a fair increase in the turnout of voters as against what was recorded in the last governorship elections prior to the 2025 governorship elections. So we have over 70% in this voter intention survey that intend to vote. They're committed to the voting process, and that's a good number, but their worry is about security. And so that's on the one hand that I want you to speak to and provide assurances as to what the force will be doing to ensure that people can go out and vote. But there are other high points of the vote that will require the survey that will require the commitment of the force as well on, and that would be 46% of voters seeing the electoral process or politics, as the survey quotes it, as transactional. I'd like you to speak to those issues and the commitment of the force to addressing them.
Thank you very much. Good morning for having me. You know, the data from the survey are very interesting. And going specifically to what the Nigerian police force has been doing, I want to start with the duties of police, what is required by the police to do regarding election security management. And it all starts days, weeks, and months before the election. We do threat analysis, and we have an analysis of the likely things that would happen. What are the actors planning? Then we go ahead to prevent them from doing some of the unlawful or evil things that they plan to do. Then it goes to the actual election date, providing escort for INEC materials and staff, providing protection for materials that will be used for the election, providing adequate security at polling booths to enable people come out to cast their vote, and also providing adequate security at collation centers and when the results will be announced. Then this takes us to post-election, also managing the celebration of the results. And so far, so good. The Nigerian police force and other security agencies have been doing this perfectly. And those are part of the things that we saw that resulted in the high turnout of the Anambra governorship election in November of last year. This election has been adjudged to be one of the most peaceful, violent-free elections in the history of democracy in Nigeria. 0 violence incident was recorded during that election. And what were the things that were put in place? Just as I told you, we had, before the election, we had what we call clearance operations. People, based on the threat analysis, people or elements that have been found that are planning evil to prevent the election from going on peacefully. We removed them from circulation in lawful ways. We provided adequate security at polling units. And we saw, based on the security that was provided, we saw people calling their friends and family members to come to the polling unit to come and cast their votes. Another aspect I also want us to look at regarding this report is there is empirical evidence to show that we have more people coming to observe elections in polling units that are not voting. And most of these people are not registered voters. So if the data is saying that maybe 20% turnout, 30% turnout, and we have equal numbers of people at polling units who are not voting, then I think we should be looking on how to get this set of people into also participating in election by voting.
Honorable Commissioner, so let's move on to the YPP National Publicity Secretary. But I know that we're all in Anambra together. It was quite peaceful. In fact, one of the most peaceful, although there was an incident where somebody died, I think, in Urumba North, and was shot. I think the governor even confirmed it. But generally, it was just very peaceful. The turnout was way better than the previous election. I just needed to put those facts out so that we have a complete picture of what played out in Anambra. Mr. Martins, let's come to you. And one of the things that I've seen in this report is how the responsibility is on everybody's shoulder to ensure that people come out to vote and people feel safe when they are voting. That is dimension number one. Dimension number two is election management itself, the entire process, to the point where people believe, because it feels like the average Nigerian doesn't believe that their votes count. And I would like you to speak to it, because now with all of the defections happening, for the record, this is not the first time defection is happening. This is not the first time a ruling party is having this super majority in terms of, say, governors of, I think the PDP had about 28 governors, but I think the APC has exceeded that. Now, the reason why I highlighted that very last point that I want you to speak to, because whatever we do as election stakeholders and people do not believe that their votes count, is just a waste of time. So first and foremost, Yaga has done a great work to say people are interested in voting. They've highlighted issues around trust, security, and the rest of them. So as a political party, one of the political parties in Nigeria, when you look at that particular report, what can be done to strengthen the people's confidence in the institution to be able to give us the kind of election that we need, such that when people lose, they just know that I didn't do a great job in winning the hearts of people, not that INEC was and police was used to subvert the vote of the people.
Thank you so much, Geoffrey. Let me also join fellow stakeholders in also thanking Yaga Africa for coming up with such a robust report. And I think it's left for all stakeholders who have been identified in that report to be able to do one or two things, within their powers to ensure that those recommendations are followed through. However, I want to say that, the notion that vote does not really count is to me, is laughable. Laughable in the sense that, and I stand to be corrected. If our votes do not really count, why do the politicians deem it fit to want to buy these votes, from citizens? Why suddenly vote buying, become an issue? And I think that all we should be looking at is the weaponization of poverty, of ignorance by the political class, to ensure that at the day of voting, all they do is to buy the votes of citizens. And I also want to put it out, clearly, that as political parties, our job is quite clear, is to be able to ensure that there is a transparent process by which we produce candidates that will vie, for elections. And at the same time, we also galvanize, citizens to be able to go out there and vote. And it's incumbent upon the security agencies to also ensure that there's, safety in terms of, making sure that citizens are not afraid to be able to exercise their franchise. And once that is done, we will have a situation where citizens will be encouraged to be able to come out and, vote for the candidate of their choice. However, there's a caveat. Now, if these citizens come out, it is also incumbent upon the security agencies to ensure that there's nothing like vote buying. Now, if the security agencies cannot assure, that, then it becomes a problem, because at the end of the day, the kind of leaders we produce and we see are those who have successfully, bought their way, into office. Now, those leaders are responsible for the kind of policies that we have today. The system, whether we like it or not, has been heavily skewed against the political parties. Since 1999 up to this time, because political parties have been in power, specifically the PDP, that never made any effort to ensure that they build strong institutions, are today suffering for, on account of what they failed to do. Because if they had ensured that laws that are made to strengthen political parties, we will not, be in this current situation where we continue to see a situation where political parties are weakened by the law. Let me give a vivid example. In terms of the law on defection, how come when you say the lawmakers, if they defect, they automatically lose their seats? But you went on to put a clause that if there are issues in the political party, that he's got every right, to defect without any recourse. Now, the problem is this. The political class will always put something in that electoral laws that will ensure that they circumvent the system. Why can it not be that if you decamp from your political party, it doesn't matter whether there are issues in the political party, you automatically lose your seat? That, in a sense, will ensure that people sit in their political parties to be able to provide, build the same political party to be able to provide viral opposition. So I want to say, yes, we know the fears of citizens. And it's not, it's not also, different from the fears of all stakeholders. And this time around, I'm not talking about stakeholders in power, I'm talking about stakeholders in the opposition. The fear, this trust deficit. Like the 2023 elections, there's this fear that, okay, how come nobody saw the system glitch? And the same thing we are saying, because that was also done deliberately. Because if it wasn't done deliberately, it would have been a matter of law. The law would have covered that transmission of election results from polling units to the IRF. So, all said and done, all we want to say is that citizens should be confident that their vote counts, but there are other adjoining factors which are not within their purview. It's beyond their control. It's about the political class coming together to say, what kind of Nigeria do we really want? Do we want a Nigeria that is sustainable, that will serve the interest of all, even if we are not in power, or just, skewing the system to be able to reach out to their short-term needs? Because power is transient and you will never be in power forever. So hence, we want to speak to those in power today to ensure that laws are made, laws that are sustainable to cater to the needs.
If I'm coming, Mr. Martins, I'll need to butt in here.
All stakeholders, including political parties, including judiciary, including the media, and all institutions that will help to strengthen, our electoral process.
Mr. Martins, well said. Let me take it to Farouk. And I want the producer to keep that slide. What would drive voting choices in 2027? 21% saying security situation, 21% quality of candidates, 17% economic conditions, and then what was written here, Nigerians vote for candidates, not just parties. So individuals matter. Farouk, let's talk about what political parties can do based on this report to inspire people, especially the young persons, which the report looks at with youth paradox, saying that they are more active online than at the polling unit. They see voting as more transactional, while the senior citizens see it as a responsibility, and some of them are totally detached. They don't want to hear anything about governance. But policies of government is what is affecting us today and will affect us tomorrow and affected us yesterday. So let's talk about the culture of political parties in fielding the quality of candidates they should field to be able to inspire the young people essentially and everybody generally to be able to, for us to have the kind of election and the kind of leadership, because all we are saying here is about recruitment process, the threshold for recruitment. So right now, I hold the view, personal view all the way, that what drives politicians or holds them in political parties either subservience to power or what I can call, you know, their own ambition at the end of the day, beyond service to the people. We're not saying all are guilty. So from this data, what can be done? And how can political parties sieve their persons and their candidates or the people they are putting out to the public to be able to give us the kind of quality of people that we need? Because what we see are mostly people that are being recycled.
Thank you so much, Geoffrey. And I think that it's very important to note that this is a one of its kind type of survey that Young Africa has produced, because what the data has done, it has helped give us an insight into what goes on in the mind of a Nigerian when he or she goes to the polling unit to cast the ballots. And you can see there on the screen that the choices are the security situation, the quality of candidates, and economic conditions. But just to speak about the quality of candidates, like you mentioned, is that it starts with the political parties first and foremost. And we must ensure that every political party conducts free, fair, credible, democratic primaries, which is an internal party arrangement as part of the leadership selection process about who has access to the ballot, so to speak. A further analysis of this data would probably tell you that Nigerians are more concerned about candidates than they are about political parties. So it means political parties who present candidates who are competent, who are credible, who have character, stand a very high chance of winning elections in 2027. So our political parties, and across board, all the political parties, it is very important that the candidates that you're presenting for the 2027 general elections are candidates who can, represent the citizens in the different constituencies for which they are vying for these offices. Historically, we have seen where candidates have been imposed by different political parties, and it is not difficult to draw that straight line between candidate imposition and where you can see that governance has failed in terms of being able to deliver on its promise, especially by those who end up in electoral office who did not emerge from a process that ensured the best quality of candidates are presented at the ballot. If you read the report, it goes further in our recommendations, especially to political parties, talking about the quality of candidates. But we also have a recommendation for our friends in the media, also around investigative journalism and background checks on these candidates. Because if the political party tells you this is a candidate who has competence and character and capacity to deliver, our friends in the media also have a very important role, around investigative journalism, carrying out background checks, whether it is spotlighting them in the media around what are some of the things they've done in the past and some of their promises of what they will do when they get into office, to ensure that when a Nigerian goes to cast his or her vote in 2027, at the back of their mind, there's an assurance around the candidate that he or she is voting for, together with many of the other factors that we can see in the data, whether it comes to security and CP. Abayomi Shogunle has done an amazing job talking about what are some of the security plans that have been put in place previously and will be put in place in the future, but also around economic conditions that are on the mind of a voter when he or she goes to cast their vote in 2027.
Let me bring it back to the Commissioner for Elections, Mr. Shogunle. I know you had addressed the matter of security, but I'd like to double down on it, particularly because the off-cycle elections may be on a smaller scale of how to really assess the effort of the force in providing security during elections. Let's look at general elections, which are on a larger scale. Sometimes I believe the INEC guidelines for voter conduct varies from election year to election year. But there are some years where voters are encouraged to remain behind after casting their ballot such that they can protect their vote. Now, if security is a component that is informing the choices of whether voters choose to remain behind or not, then we're going to be looking at security on a larger scale and the performance of the force. So I'd like you to speak to that. But and during your last commentary, I doubt that you quite addressed the issue of voting seen as transactional during elections. And we also know that members of the force aid and abet these transactions during elections. So I'd like you to address the conduct of your officers on those two issues.
All right, thank you very much. Before I do that, it's also important I clear this point. The sad incident Geoffrey referred to, the homicide case in Anambra on the day of the election, has nothing to do with the election. It did not happen in any of the polling units or anywhere close to where the election took place. The victim of this sad incident was not on the ballot. So this incident has nothing, is not related to the election. And having said that, let me assure everyone that wants to come out to vote that everything needed to be done is being done to ensure your safety. And come out to vote, nothing would happen to you. As a matter of fact, IGP Kayode Egbetokun, PhD, NPM, he wants to ensure, or he wants to make sure that we have peaceful and credible election. And we have seen this happening since he came into office. The election security has significantly changed since the current IGP came into office. And we're going to see this through also to the general election in 2027. Regarding off-cycle election being on a smaller scale compared to general election, you know, there are lessons learned and there are best practices we take from off-cycle elections to the general elections. There are certain plans that we want to, there are certain theories that we want to experiment, which we start by using them during this off-cycle election. And we see them producing positive results. We take it to the general elections. Also, general elections are compartmentalized, as in they happen based on state level. So the same security you are given in a state is the same security you are given in another state at different times. Issue of election being transactional, even channels reported it, law enforcement agents arresting people that were trying to buy votes this last Anambra elections. So we don't keep our eyes off it. And a lot is being done also regarding training of police officers for election duties, because election security is completely different from the day-to-day security provisions that the police provide to members of the public in ensuring safety of life and property. And just as I've said again, because we cannot throw away this figure of people that come out to polling units and they are not voting. We cannot throw that away. It is very, very important. We can't have this, we cannot have a conversation on this survey without factoring all these hundreds and thousands of people that also show up at polling units on the day of election. They are not registered voters, they are not voting. If there are security issues, would we still have that much number of people also coming out to polling units? So for everyone that wants to come out to vote, come out and vote. And if we say security issue is part of the choices that people consider before voting, look at security operations that have been taking place since the end of last year. A lot of terrorist camps have been burnt, and a lot of terrorists have been taken out of circulation, you know, in their hundreds.
Yes.
This has been reported by channels as well. So we are seeing improved security situation in the country. It's not like what it used to be 10 years ago when the state of emergency was only limited to the northeast region. We have seen a lot of improvement, and we will continue to see improvement in the coming days.
If I may come in, Mr. Shogunle, as we begin to wind down, of course, we're not saying the needle has not been moved in one way or the other. We can't discountenance the effort of security agents. In fact, your optimism is what we want to be our reality, not just an optimism that is going to get better. But what I was talking about, the death that was recorded on that Saturday was confirmed by the governor. In fact, the report said that they stormed the voting center in Owerri Ezukala Ward 1 and shot the council, except after that there was more investigations done to say it wasn't connected to the election. But there was somebody died that day. But let me move to Mr. Martins. Mr. Martins, let's talk about what I saw in this report that is very troubling. Two things. The fragile trust in INEC. Just 45% of Nigerians have confidence in INEC based on the data sample size that was done. And 76% of Nigerians are unaware of the recent electoral reforms. That's even more troubling. That the document that guides the conduct of election, a lot of Nigerians are not aware, based on, let me put it in context, based on the sample size of what the Yaga Africa. So I want you to speak to the fragility of trust in institutions and the what do you call now? The people not being aware of the electoral amendment that is going on.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. The issue of trust deficit between citizens and institutions is a huge-long problem in this country. And it speaks to one thing, that there is a systemic failure which has led to a situation where citizens do not really trust institutions. However, the institutions, you know, put efforts to ensure that things change for the better. And most often than not, I think citizens should not be blamed. I want to believe the blame should rest, you know, at the doorstep of the political class, and I'll continue to maintain that, because how we want the citizens to react will only be complementary to whatever role the political class is willing to play. And we really do not have a political class that is willing, as far as I'm concerned, right now, to commit class suicide in such a way that they begin to make laws that are sustainable, laws that are transparent, laws that are for the masses. And until we get to that point, there will always be this disconnect between citizens and institutions. And yes, citizens, you know, for them to trust INEC, especially because I think this came as a result of the outcome of the 2023 election. Because before the 2023 election, hopes were high. You know, people were galvanized to believe in the system, to believe in INEC. Now, this time around, there was going to be credible election. And whether we like it or not, yes, we can sit down and analyze the failure of INEC, but to a large extent, some things were done right. But what went wrong was also what I said earlier on, that there's always a loophole in our laws that the political class will always take advantage of, which was what they did in 2023. Because while we all believe that the issue of IREF, the beavers will help to address the high-scale, malpractices in elections, yeah, to an extent it worked, because we saw a situation where the ruling party actually lost in Lagos. And of course, the current president, that is his own strong base. He actually lost. We saw like 5 governors losing Senate seats. And we saw, a new entrant into, in terms of being a presidential candidate, pulling good results in some states. And that will show that to an extent, the electoral law, that was, amended, gave us something that citizens could look up to, that at least there is a glimmer of hope. However, there wasn't that loophole that they put, not to make it a compulsory requirement of the law, that electronic transmission of result from the polling unit to the high ref is compulsory. And that was what the Supreme Court latched on to ensure that, even at the level of the judiciary, they had to work with what was presented before them. So what we can begin to do, in my own opinion, is for us to, yes, we are evolving. Let's continue to see what those loopholes we identified in 2023, let's ensure that they are amended. But I share the same feelings with most of the civil society, that we do not see this current National Assembly, giving the much needed attention to the current electoral amendment. And at the time they will end up doing it, I will foresee what happened in 2019 happening, where the president will tell you that it was too close to the election and he cannot sign. Those are the possibilities that we foresee. And on the area of enlightenment in terms of citizens not being aware, now we are all responsible, and it also goes back to what I said earlier on in terms of political parties deliberately being weakened, not to be able to function optimally. We can only function within the limit of the resources we have to be able to carry out sensitization programs, within the nooks and crannies of society, because it's incumbent on us as political parties to ensure that we enlighten voters to understand the revolution or changes that are taking place in, the electoral process. Yeah. Also is the responsibility, of course, of civil societies and INEC, but the responsibility falls on us more. But in a situation where you have political parties that, have been emptied, so to say, they are not as strong. Okay, look at what happened. Even a military dictator who understood how institutions are built. In 1993, during the 1993 election, we had just 2 political parties as at then, and it was funded by the government. Up to the 774 local governments that they had political party offices, SDP and NRC. All right. And what was the mission? They were there to be sensitizing citizens at the grassroots, selling their political ideology on why their political party should be the choice.
Absolutely,
but
Mr.
today,
Martins.
Under a democratic government, we do not see any need to fund political parties, because we feel, why should political parties be funded? And it also went back to what I said earlier, because PDP, who would have ensured and made it a point of constitution that political parties are funded. And if you feel maybe probably the money will be a waste, how are civil societies funded? Civil society, the only reason a Yaga Africa can carry out this task is because Yaga Africa is being funded. Remove funding from Yaga Africa and you've suffocated them. The oxygen is gone. And they won't be able to come out with such, a wonderful output. So what we are saying, in essence, is that political parties should be funded. If you feel you cannot trust them with the management of the funds, you can set criteria. You can, even if we are so mentally lazy as not to know how to do it, you can replicate what is being done in the civil society. You just what? You copy and paste, or you are meant to have peculiar characteristics
Mr. Martins,
to ensure that for you to be able to access funding,
if I may
you must fulfill certain conditions.
If I may come in there, your point about funding certainly cannot be ignored. It's critical to the survival of political parties, at least for the functioning of the administrative organs. But more importantly, political parties are movement of ideas, are supposed to be, well, maybe not what obtains in our own political landscape. They're supposed to be movement of ideas beyond the movement of just persons making up those institutions. And so if they're being emptied on the level of political representation, but there are people who, you know, should flock to those parties if those ideas are convincing enough. And so we should look at the level of representation at the grassroots level, you know, where political parties are concerned, and ask more of those political parties. But as we wind down now, I'd like to take it to Mr. Shogunle and Mr. Farouk for their last words. Mr. Farouk, I'd like you to speak to us about recommendations on some of the high points that we have discussed here on the program going forward, especially as we approach the next set of off-cycle elections. And that's on the one hand. On the other hand, for Mr. Shogunle, just a bit of a digression, but let me bring it to Mr. Farouk first of all before I come to Mr. Shogunle.
Thank you so much, Bukola. I think that my colleague, you know, the secretary from the YPP, spoke about the need for passage of the Electoral Act as quickly as possible. I was very happy when I saw CP Shogunle come into the studio today and he was holding a copy of the Electoral Act that was passed in 2022. And at the back of my mind, I said, I hope that the next time I see him, he would actually be holding a copy of the Electoral Act 2022 as amended, or the Electoral Act 2026. What this means for us is that as the National Assembly resumes today, after the long holiday that they have currently been on, is that priority for us as Nigerians is to ensure that the Electoral Act is passed, because we're just a few months away from the 2027 general elections. And while it may seem like we still have time, we actually do not have time. Like CP Shogunle said, with election security, it starts days, weeks, months before the actual election. It's the same thing with the electoral law that needs to be passed. If INEC needs to pass a notice for elections, we also need to know the legal framework that is guiding the 2027 elections, whether it is the 2022 Electoral Act or whether we're going to have a 2026 Electoral Act. Secondly, and very importantly, as we wind down, was a conversation around civic duty and how different generations see elections either as transactional, especially for younger people, or as a responsibility for older people, as the data has shown us. I also think that for each and every stakeholder in the electoral process, it's important that we build that sense of civic responsibility and that sense of civic duty. Our young people in Nigeria, especially the Gen Zs, make up one of the largest demographics that we have in this country. But unfortunately, the data shows us that while there's a lot of energy online, there is reluctance to actually translate this energy into action to go to the polls. Each and every one of us are stakeholders in this process, from the FCT area council elections that are happening in February, from the off-cycle elections in Ekiti and Osun, which will be a litmus test leading up to the 2027 general elections, need to build that sense of civic duty and responsibility among younger people.
Indeed.
Whether this is through targeted voter education initiatives by civil society organizations, political parties, and the media, continuous engagement by our security agencies, especially the police, and those assurances that we receive that elections are going to be safe, and there is no need for any citizens to be afraid to go out and vote on elections day.
Yeah.
We're very
everyone, elections are a multi-stakeholder responsibility. So everyone has their work cut out for them. We must anchor at this point. Pardon me, Mr. Shogunle, I may not be able to come to you with that last question. Perhaps I should just lay it to you as a charge for a call for a balance of the deployment of electoral, for security officers during election time, also to communities during non-election time, because we see the deployment of thousands of police officers to oversee elections, but there are many communities that are vulnerable that do not have police formations at all. So that's just a feedback. That would have been a question, but we must anchor at this point. And thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on the program. We've been talking with Mr. Ibrahim Farouk, Africa Program Coordinator for Yaga Africa. We also have Mr. Egbeola Martins, the National Publicity Secretary of the YPP, and not forgetting Commissioner of Police on Elections, Mr. Bayomi Shogunle. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming through on this conversation. And so we'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll talk about some persons who are aggrieved about a certain process. But before we get to that, we'll head to Anambra before we get to those people who are petitioning the CBN about certain offer of appointments that never came through. So we'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll continue with the next leg of our conversation.
And the shops locked up. I've peeped inside, a few persons here and there, okay? Anyone who has not opened, for main market, of all markets, to be shut down. I know that people have done this sit at home on Mondays for quite some time now, and as they say, an abomination that lasts a year becomes culture. No. This can no longer go on in Anambra. Yes, sir. Are you hearing me? Yes. And I will tell you this. You either decide that you want to trade here or you can go elsewhere. Are you hearing me? Yes, sir. This main market, if you don't want it to open, I'll come and take bulldozer and level it. Are you hearing me? Yes. And I'm very, very serious about it. I'm not joking. Going forward, any Monday, any shop that is not open will be locked for 1 week. And let me tell you this. As I'm speaking to you now, when I finish this whole main market and all the adjoining these things will be locked down for the whole of this week. There will be no market anywhere here. Are you hearing me? Each Monday will come and inspect. If people are not in their respective shops, it will be shut down again. If you don't like it, go elsewhere and trade. But if you are here, we're not going to allow this. It's plain economic sabotage. And also we suspect whoever closes their shop to have some criminal intent.
Those are the words of Governor Chukwuma Soludo, the governor of Anambra State. And the governor has spoken. Well, he's gotten flags, he's gotten commendation. Let's speak with the Commissioner for Information in the state, Mr. Lomefo. He joins us virtually. Mr. Lomefo, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for...
So, let's begin with the people that are critical of the governor's statement and how the government is responding. First, they say they can choose to open their shop if they want to. It's within their rights to come in and go out when they want to. That's on one hand. Second, the concern around is not just using pronouncement in that sense, or fear to say you must open your shop, else we'll be considering you to be sabotaging or working together with the people that are sabotaging the economy of the state. Is there adequate security? In fact, some people are daring the governor to say Since you feel the place is that safe, keep your security in your office, walk to the market on Monday freely, and let's see how it plays out. How is he taking this?
That is a sign of. I don't see how a governor of a state will have to move around without a level of security. But let me quickly say, there's no way a responsible government they ask the players to go back to the jobs every month. So this has been done in some round. The Nigeria Police Force, Anambra and also our name, which is the Anambra State. So there is something on the ground. I want to say that they have every right to open shops when they want. First and foremost, it is important we know that the Onitsha main market actually belongs to Anambra State government. And a tenant and a landlord, they have some relationship, even under the law. So they cannot say that the Onitsha main market will run the way and manner they want it. No, that will be overreaching. And besides that, the government of a state has an oversight function over everything, including markets in the state. Onitsha main market inclusive in the case of Anambra. So you can see that the governor and his government have every right to ensure that there is an even running of the state. And beyond this also, there is the threat you mentioned, that people say that there is no security. I have already told you that there is adequate security. In fact, if you visit the Onitsha main market today, you will see what I mean. And you can move around Anambra State. You will see that Anambra is safe for business. The fear factor is no longer there. Maybe in the past, when this sit-at-home started, but now it is no longer an issue. Fear factor is no longer an issue. So there is no further justification for the continued shutdown of markets in Anambra, particularly on the main market, which is arguably the biggest market in the entire West Africa.
Mr. Amefo, if I may come in, Mr. Amefo, just a moment, if you can hear me. You say Anambra is safe, there is no fear factor. So explain to me, the average Nigerian believes that the Igbo man is a very industrious person, and there's enough and plenty of evidence to that effect. They love to trade, they love to do business, they are very active. So people that are naturally endowed with such entrepreneurial spirit will just suddenly not want to go to their shops. Is that what, because you're saying there is no fear factor, I'm querying your no fear factor argument.
No more fear factor. You need to get this point. I said, and let me repeat for emphasis, that initially there was fear factor, justified, but it's no longer there. You know, for months and years, Anambra security has been fairly restored. So there is no longer any fear factor. And you see, what has happened is that the fear factor led to the closing of the markets and even offices every Monday in the past. And over time, the traders now converted Monday into an extension of the weekend. And this in itself is seriously affecting the socio-economic life of the state. In fact, statistics has said that Anambra is losing an average of 8 billion every Monday that the markets are shut. This is very serious. And if you look at it from that perspective, you can see that the government has a responsibility to ensure that the economy is running on an even keel again. And those who are opposing it are simply being mischievous. And that is why the governor rightly called called it economic sabotage. There is genuine shutting down of markets in Anambra State. And let me also mention this. It's not as if the governor just woke up and stopped over at the Onitsha main market and shut it down. No, this is a product of the Executive Council of the state. ANSEC met in a retreat 2 Mondays ago and took a decision that efforts must be geared up towards putting an end to sit at home in Anambra. So you can see that it's not just the governor, it's the entire government that took that decision. The governor was implementing it as it were. And it is not going to be only on the Chade market. All the other over 150 markets we have in Anambra State will be visited. And any of them found to be shut on any Monday will have to receive the same treatment. And it has to be done. It is inevitable now. It has been on for about 4 years. And if you check that you have 56 Mondays in a year multiplied by 4 and then multiplied by 8 billion, you will see what the state is losing for Monday sit at home. This is in excess of 1 trillion. And it has to stop. The state is hemorrhaging. And beyond the issue of economic losses, you know, if you are expecting investors to come into your state, do you have to keep promoting the fear factor? The perception that Anambra is insecure is no longer valid. Anambra is well secure, and you can check the peer review reports by the Nigerian security agencies. They are there. The police, the DSS, they will tell you the state of security in Anambra. We just finished the Yuletide and New Year, and it was a mass return from the Anambra. If there wasn't enough security, I don't think Anambra would have witnessed that unprecedented mass return. You know, so there are several factors. We just have to end the sit at home. We have had enough of it.
So, Mr. Mefo, if you can hear me,
yes.
Pardon me, let's interrogate the government's approach a bit more. And this is not the first time that Governor Soludo will do a routine tour of markets in the state and condemn the sit-at-home order. But we are not seeing results. So is that something fundamentally wrong with the approach of the government in tackling this sit-at-home order in Anambra State? What should the government be doing differently? Why are the traders not convinced about the assurances of the government about the provision of adequate security? Are there CCTV cameras, you know, in those markets? And how, what's the proximity of, you know, the nearest deployment of security operatives in the market or in nearby areas to markets in Anambra State that would be convincing enough to the traders to ensure, to give them the confidence to come out on Mondays?
Yeah, you see, Onitsha holds a whole cantonment of the Nigerian army. That is one Onitsha itself. The distance between the Onitsha cantonment and the main market is maybe 5 minutes. And of course, Onitsha itself has up to half a dozen divisional police commands. You know, so it's not a matter of security presence. We have more than enough of that in Onitsha. And again, for those who really want the Monday sit-at-home to end, assuming the Onitsha main market leaders or leadership actually share the same concern with the governor, they can also work out the level of security they need with the Nigeria police force, with the governor, and that they would get. If for example, they believe that what we have provided is not enough, they should make a direct demand that this is what they want for them to operate freely and peacefully. This hasn't come. We have been in conversation with the market leaders across Anambra State for over a year, perhaps 2 years, on working out the modalities for the reopening of the markets every Monday. And it's all politics on their part. Like I told you, they have converted Monday into an extension of the weekend, which is an anomaly. Anambra cannot be different from the rest of the country. We must work on Mondays. And let me also tell you, it's not just about the markets alone. The same measures have been extended to the civil servants, majority of who were not coming to work on Mondays. And of course, the governor has implemented the pro rata salary system. So you don't come to work on Monday, you lose your pay for that day. You know, nobody's dismissing you, but no work, no pay on Mondays. This is the policy. And the schools must reopen. Schools don't even open on Mondays as well. So you can see that we're not talking about just market or on a main market. On a main market is symbolic because of its size. But I tell you that the workers have resumed. Last Monday, yesterday was Monday. The secretariat was bustling with life. It never happened before in the last 3 to 4 years. It's ending. The teachers are back to classrooms. On Mondays, last Monday they were everywhere, and that's what we want. The state must be restored fully to its normal social life.
But Mr. Mefo,
that is the determination of the governor. You see, just one more point before you take over. The point is, it's not a matter of security. The market leaders ought to work out security arrangement if what government and the police have provided, is considered inadequate by them. We haven't gotten that request. So the problem is no longer security. They have other conversions they have made, which they want to protect, and that is extending the weekends to the Mondays we have now.
So if this is not about their safety and there's more to it that you're trying to make us understand, we may have to interact with the leadership or the representatives of those markets in Onitsha and in other parts of Anambra State, such that we get a holistic sense of what is actually going on. But what about the fundamental human rights of the market traders, the traders in the market themselves? Because if, as entrepreneurs who have control of their time and their resources, if they choose to say, we do not want to come out on Monday, then I doubt that the government has the right to impede in any way on their fundamental human rights. My question. All right, I'll take it again. I was talking about, getting an aerial view of the concerns of the people beyond what you're telling us, which we'll have to explore in the coming days. But more importantly, if the traders choose not to come out on Mondays, they reserve the right as entrepreneurs who have control of their time and their resources. And if the government, tries to impede on that, wouldn't this be a breach of their fundamental human rights?
You make it as if the entire population of the traders on the main market agreed that there should be Monday sit at home. That is not the truth. The truth is that this is being enforced by a clique. And because of intimidation and everything, the majority that want to trade on Mondays are silent. Now it is the duty of government to give them the space to ply their trade. And that is exactly what the issue is now. By Monday, the place will be reopened for those who want to trade. And even if it is a handful of traders that are found available, they will have to.
The network is not very friendly this morning. You're saying that it's a clique that have decided and gone ahead to make this sit-at-home a big deal at the markets. Well, Jeffrey made the point earlier that we know our brothers and sisters in the Southeast, not just in Anambra State now, to be industrious wherever they are even beyond the shores of Nigeria. And so this love for trade is evident. So we may need to interrogate the position of government more keenly to find out exactly what the challenge or the challenges are, as the case may be, because there are reports that in other parts of the Southeast, the sit-at-home order no longer obtains, but not necessarily in the hinterland in other parts of the Southeast, maybe in capital cities. So we're trying to understand, get a full sense market, which is, you know, the subject in focus now. So you were talking about, you were responding to this being their fundamental human right, and government has no right to impede on it whatsoever. So I'm not talking about their determination to go ahead and implement this as a commitment to observing the Monday sit-at-home order. But on their own, if they say, we don't want to work on Mondays, they have the right to do so.
Mixing this up, it is not all the traders that agree on this Monday sit-at-home. So it is also an infringement on the fundamental human rights of the traders that want to trade on Mondays. And it is the duty of the government to ensure that such infringement stops. So those who do not want to trade should leave the market for those who want to trade on Mondays. That is what the government has said. That is what the governor has announced. This is not an infringement on anybody's fundamental human rights, because where your right stops is where mine begins. A clique cannot use violence, coercion, and all manner of threats to ensure that the majority of traders who want to trade on Monday do not trade.
But what,
as a responsible government, it is important.
Mr. Mefo, what if they meet their commitments in taxes and in payment of stalls and in cleanliness, every responsibility that covers Mondays as well?
Yeah, they do that, yes, to some extent, but the fact remains that they don't allow people to open their shops. They don't have any right to stop who wants to trade on Monday from trading. This is the point I'm making. They do not have such rights. Never. Not under the law, not under morality, not under anything. There are traders that want to trade, and the governor and his government want them to trade on Mondays. Those who do not want to trade on Mondays should stay away from the markets. That is the point.
We're totally out of time.
The government...
Yes, we're totally out of time, but 30 seconds. So if I come to Onitsha main market, will I see the presence of vigilante or security? Are there CCTVs? What is there that physically can give me assurance that that place is safe?
On the main market, as we speak now, you will see the Nigerian Army, you will see the Nigerian Police, you will see DSS, you will see Civil Defense, you will see our own Agone Chamber, which is our vigilante. The place is fully policed. So it's no longer a problem of security. And I repeat, if they believe the security provided by government is not sufficient, can they make a direct demand that this is the level or kind of security they need? Because everything there is to security in Anambra and in Nigeria, is made available to the traders in the Chambe market and in all other markets in Anambra, as a matter of fact.
Apologies, Mr. Mefo. We'll continue to watch how things evolve. But we must thank you for coming on the program and for giving us the side of the government. We wish we could get the management of the market to also speak on this particular issue, but we couldn't get them on the program. But maybe some other time. I must thank you, Lord Mefo, as the Commissioner for Information in Anambra State. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. We'll take a break now. When we come back, some individuals numbering about 60 at the twilight of the Muhammadu Buhari administration said they were hired by the CBN, were even told to leave their former jobs, but they never had any opportunity to resume, and this is maybe 2.5 years later. But what is the true story? We'll talk to one of those people involved. Just a moment, stay with us.
Welcome back. And so we have joining us representatives of the 60 individuals who reportedly were promised employment and were asked to resign by the CBN. That's in 2023, towards the end of the last administration, but the employment never came through. So their representatives, Mr. Ali Benedict and Mr. Yakubu Abdullah, join us on the program. One joins us virtually and the other joins us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Ali Benedict, I wonder if you're the one joining from our Abuja studio. I'd like to start with you, Mr. Abdullah. I think it's Mr. Abdullah who joins us from our Abuja studio. Who are these 60 individuals? How did you come together, you know, under one umbrella, being the aggrieved who, you know, have a case against the CBN following this failed employment that should have come through? Mr. Ali Benedict is the one who joins us from our Abuja studio. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for having me here. As time goes on, maybe more of the details will come up. But then, you know, when you have a common denominator, in this instance, maybe denial of employment, because I want to put the record straight. These employment letters were offered between June, for those that have cited, between June and August. Specifically, mine is 28th of August 2023. And then the current President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR is already on seat. So it wasn't during the tenure of the former president that I was employed. But how we came about to be together as one, because, you know, we, over a period of about 26 to 28 months, we started asking, maybe from conversation, who is among those that were employed by CBN that they have not been posted. Because the employment procedure, we at various times, for my case, over 6 years, I've submitted an application at the headquarters of the Central Bank of Nigeria. And I don't know how an order submitted, but a lot of people submitted. And randomly, I was called from the human resource, and I was email was sent to me, and I was also called, I think HR7, that was the HR7 at CBN.org, that I should respond. Initially, we were thinking it's fraudster, but remembering that I have already applied some time ago, we started communicating, wrote a formal, very difficult exam. I'm a pharmacist by training, and that looked like one of the most difficult exams I've ever written. They can go back to the question paper and not allow any pharmacist to have access to it. Wrote exam, they say we passed the written exam, communicated us, set a day for interview with the board of interviewers. There are about 7 people were interviewed. They called us again that were passed. Were invited to come to Abuja, their CBN clinic, at the clinic headquarters there. They conducted a series of tests, including COVID-19 vaccination, were made to take the vaccination, and other tests, series of tests. You know, we did the test, we left, they called us again that we have passed the test. And after like 2-3 months, we were called to come to the headquarters of Central Bank of Nigeria here in Abuja to collect our employment letter. And at the gate, our name were properly documented, we were given tag, we went to, I think, 7th floor, the human resource, we got our letters, did the documentation, and we were asked to await posting. Mine was in August 2023. For there are other people that their letter was dated June. So between June 2023 and August 2023, several people were employed. As of the point of this report, I don't know exactly whether the people are 60-something, but I know when we just created a platform and we asked for people's detail, I think the last number I saw was 59, and afterwards 1 or 2 people called. So nobody knows exactly. It's a matter of maybe as the thing was going public, it's okay. What, do you know anybody that did this in? People were being added. So it is not an issue of wrong employment or an issue of having challenges with employment. We have been employed with our employment letters here, as is shown on the screen. So it's not an issue of being employed. We have been employed. We have done our documentation, done the clinicals, everything. We are waiting posting, and we're very ready to work. But when we were patient, 1 month gone, 2 months gone, 3 months gone, 4 months gone, we just feel that we cannot just sit down and leave our fate in somebody's hand. We don't know who is determining it. But we waited for too long, about 20, some people waited between 28 months and 32 months. Now I've been waiting. So our cry is just simple. We have been employed, we should be posted to work because several people have been made to resign from their various work. We are doing work at different places. The majority are working in the banking sector. Some are working in other government parastatal and raising to even up to the point of assistant director. And they left the job to come and take this job and serve the nation in that capacity of working at the Central Bank of Nigeria.
All right, let's take it to Mr. Let's take it to Mr. Abdullah now, who has joined us virtually. Tell us your own side to the story, and would also like to get a better sense of how all 60 of you came together and how it happens that all 60 are aggrieved. They didn't get this employment.
All right, good morning. I'm happy to be here. How the 60 of us came together? Well, I think I've met a few people when I went to collect my own offer letter in the headquarters in Abuja. And that was how we exchanged numbers. We didn't know that we'll end up in one group today like this, you know? But regardless, I mean, I thank God we exchanged numbers, because if we didn't, we would have been all lost today thinking what happened, what about the rest, maybe they got it or not. So we got our letters and we left. You know, we decided to open a group chat just to be updating each other what's going on. You know, we didn't know that we were in for a very long ride, you know. But yeah, it's been almost 3 years now and we're still waiting. We're still waiting.
It's been 2 years and not one out of the 60 has moved on or secured another job.
I doubt.
All right.
I doubt, because if there was, you know, I doubt.
All right, yeah. Mr. Benedict, talk to us about what you're hearing from the Human Resource Department or the Publicity Department of the Apex Bank. What are they saying about the status of all 60 of you?
There's no direct communication. The communication have ceased, I think, around from September 2023. So we are left to work with speculations and assumptions. And at a point, we heard that we should wait, because we have communicated them 2 times. But there's no response from them. And at a point, we became restless, because what we hear, they say that in the tradition of the CBN, that they will call us, we should hold on, that the time have not elapsed. But it's not an official communication to us. Yeah, so I can say that the CBN is not communicating with us properly.
All right. All right.
In that regard.
As we wind down, in 60 seconds, Mr. Abdullah, what is the resolve of the group of 60? What do you plan to do, especially since communication from the representation of the bank has ceased?
We decided to go media, and we are still appealing. We can only appeal, to be honest. This is our country. This is where we want to be successful. This is where we want all our experience and our education that we gathered all around the world to go and make an impact here. So we're just appealing to the governor, to the president, to Minister of Finance, anybody who can help, just to look into our matter. To be honest, we are still good citizens. We don't want to do anything bad. We are still here to appeal for our jobs. It's as simple as that. Please, anybody. We are just happy. Thank you.
All right, that's well presented, and we hope that, you know, a representative of the CBN will respond to some of these concerns that have been put forward by the representatives of this 60 who were promised employment and had in fact been presented with provisional employment letters, but since then they haven't heard anything. Mr. Ali Benedict and Mr. Yakubu Abdullah have spoken for the group of 60 that got provisional letters of employment from Nigeria's Apex Bank, Central Bank of Nigeria, but have since not been asked to resume. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on the program.
You're welcome. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you for having me.
And here's where we drop the anchor on the program today. Thank you so much for being there. We'll be back again tomorrow for another edition. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Remember, Sunrise Daily is up at the very top of the hour. Join them to follow up on the big happenings in the polity and in politics. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Bye-bye.